Y2K as apocalyptic phenomena.
First, let me tell people, there is no need to panic. There is no need to hoard. The sky is not falling.
I'm concerned about keeping my family warm and fed.
Apocalypticism is the belief that this change will happen soon.
December 31st, 1999 is an apocalyptic date. Now, whether it will be apocalyptic or not, we can't know. And that's the amazing thing. When we first heard about Y2K, we set up the center without knowing about Y2K. We set it up because we know that in the past, big round numbers like 1,000 can provoke some fairly extraordinary behavior. And that in particular, that extraordinary behavior, if you will, concentrates and intensifies at the approach of the date. The symbol of the center is a rooster and an owl. The rooster is the one who crows, the dawn is imminent, wake up, get ready, get going. And the owl's the one who says, oh, it's still the middle of the night, go back to sleep. The foxes are out, the master's asleep, and you'll just do damage by waking up the barnyard. And in Y2K, the owls are saying, you know, don't worry, it's not a problem. Go back to sleep, keep your money in the bank, keep your money in the stock market. Don't bother stocking up on supplies because everything's fine, it's all under control.
No one knows what will happen on January 1st, 2000. We can have tests, we can prepare for it, we can change all the lines of code we want. But when it comes right down to it, we do not know exactly what's going to happen. And this is for a couple of reasons. One is because there are a certain number of embedded chips. And some embedded chips will work and some won't. But unless we actually pull the chip out of the machinery and look at it, we won't know which it is. And there are so many millions and billions of these chips worldwide that there simply isn't enough time to know which are the ones which will work and which won't. And of the ones which will not work, which are the ones which are in sensitive areas.
What we've got is a really powerful social, cultural, technological, economic mix that's very volatile. And in terms of 1999, I mean, now we're in mid-March 99, my sense is that the roosters are going to crow louder and louder. They're already crowing very loud. They're going to crow louder and louder. And we're going to see this intensify at the approach of 1999.
The social implications of Y2K begin before Y2K will actually hit. And that's because there's so much anxiety and there's such a wide range of beliefs about what will happen that anxiety builds. People try to be ready for Y2K beforehand, which can be done in a positive or a negative way.
Governments are very far behind as far as being Y2K prepared.
I've been to a few seminars about the Y2K crisis, and got to worry what's going to happen to the banks and stuff if people start going in and taking out all their money, what's going to happen to the economy the last couple weeks of December. But I'm sure things will straighten themselves out. I'm not in a panic.
Well, the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, or MEMA, as we call it, is based here in Framingham. This is where our Emergency Operations Center for the state is. MEMA is the state agency that is responsible for coordinating state response and recovery during and after emergencies or disasters. Our first challenge is to make those state agencies and departments compliant, Y2K compliant, so that they can continue to serve the public in Massachusetts with their services. In terms of the basic infrastructure of our state and of the nation really as a whole, and by infrastructure I'm talking about utilities, telecommunications, banking, and transportation. No major problems are foreseen in these particular areas.
Everything from, you know, the failure of the electricity grid and prolonged periods of disruption of significant services, hospital, rescue, police, food, water, electricity, you know, and this is the middle of winter. So, you know, that's the disaster scenario.
The utility industries, the electric companies, gas companies, have made quite a lot of progress on this and have been addressing this for quite some time. A lot of progress has been made in those areas as well, and I think they really are well on their way to being fully compliant.
the power grid affects everybody's life who's on the grid. So not only does it affect every American, or almost every American, except for the survivalists who are saying, aha, we told you so, but essentially it's affecting this huge global community which has really just come together in the last 20 years.
My worst case scenario is the grid goes down. I mean, if the grid goes down, then there goes electricity, you know, and then how long do people in cities last without electricity?
No power for a month. That is going to really be lousy. If that happens, it's going to be so inconvenient and so utterly change a person's day-to-day living.
The power grid in New England is only expected to be approximately 40% in use at the time of January 1st weekend, leaving 60% of the power grid in reserve. So I think this is really some good news that people should also know about, in that it's a low power demand time anyway, and there are contingency plans in place to switch around power sources if need be. Banking industry has perhaps made the most progress on this issue of any, really. As of this time, I've heard a figure of 97% compliance nationally and about the same here in Massachusetts.
If everybody, normal average salary was $36,000, that if everybody took out their last paycheck, there'd barely be enough money to cover. So that's, you know, and then if they took out a whole month, they wouldn't have enough to cover. So it's scary that the banking system is that close to being toppled. I mean, this is, to me, that's unbelievable.
The Federal Reserve also has $50 billion in cash in reserve to pour into the banking system if need be.
Any organization that's responsible for the population is going to have to do contingency planning, which puts the government in this difficult position. On the one hand, they want everybody to sleep through this. On the other hand, they have to do contingency planning, and the more contingency planning they do, the more people say, hey, if you're going to do contingency planning, I'm going to do contingency planning. I'll take $1,000 out of my bank account, I'll, you know, buy a generator, I'll do this, I'll do that, and maybe I'll take my money out of the stock market. And then all of a sudden you've triggered the second disaster scenario, which is whether Y2K is serious or not, purely in terms of social panic, we can have the whole system shut down. I mean, the banks can be destroyed by a run on the banks, and they're perfectly aware of that, so they want to reassure people. So we're in this dilemma where the more the government does contingency planning, the more worried people get. The more it tries to do it in secret, the more it feeds the paranoia scenario.
The government's point of view is basically, I think, not to create any kind of panic.
Any policymaker who's sitting in his office or her office right now and thinking, if we just keep the lid on this, we can tiptoe past this state, is fooling themselves.
I think Y2K is another challenge that we're going to be able to meet and triumph over, if you will, without any real problem.
Let me put it this way. I'm fairly sure that there are a fair number of businesses and industries and government organizations who are telling us they're going to be ready, and they're not. Now, some of them are counting on the fact that not being ready really won't matter and that this is a hype thing. But in terms of getting straight answers from people who are in positions of responsibility and who didn't do the work they should have done, you know, years ago, we're not getting a straight story. So we can't assess how serious the threat is.
It's not going to be a minor little bump in the road. That's kind of what they'd like you to believe, I guess.
In this case, there could be, as I say, some bumps in the road for Y2K. We don't expect any major problems, but it's always good to be prepared.
I think that we're going to find that wealth is going to accumulate and concentrate itself more into fewer hands. I think we're going to find more poor people that are excluded from the world economy.
Am I worried about the banks going down? Not really. Am I worried about the electricity going off? Not really. Am I worried about the food running out? Not really. Of course, I may be starving and out of money on the 2nd of January, and you guys will all be laughing.
Nobody wants to believe that, you know, something bad will happen. But if you were saying all this stuff before, I don't know, the summer of 1929, before the stock market crashed, people would be like, oh, you're crazy, you know, this is going to last forever.
People always think emergencies don't happen to me, but they can, and they do in your community. Now, we urge people on a regular basis, regardless, to always be prepared around their own home for any hazard that could occur.
As I go to the market and I see peanut butter, I'll stock up on peanut butter when it's on sale, or macaroni and cheese, or tuna fish, or any of those kind of high protein things. I had already planned, come this summer, I would start washing out my milk jugs and preparing them to use to store water.
Some people are worried about water, for instance. I can tell you that 85% of the water supplies from the MWRA, which is the Mass Water Resources Authority, which is a major water provider in Massachusetts, 85% of the water provided by the MWRA is gravity fed. And last time I checked, gravity was Y2K compliant. So, but for that other 15% that isn't, for instance, that requires electricity to move that water to its customers or whatever, there are generators in place. There are backup generators, and they are even looking at other contingency plans for backing up those backups.
One of the things we particularly need to focus on is, with a child, is ensuring that we have plenty or sufficient supply of over-the-counter medications. If I don't have power, neither does the drugstore down the street. So if my child has a cold or a fever or whatever, I need to already have plenty of cold medications and Tylenol and that sort of thing.
I have like a news clipping service, and so probably for the past year and a half, it's been sending me information every day. I get an information update from certain sources that tell me, you know, this might happen, this might happen, this might happen, and then you take all that information and you put it together and form your own opinion, because people can tell you anything. Whether or not you believe it, you have to go out and do the research in order to actually find out for yourself what you believe in.
There's a lot of information out there about Y2K. There are a lot of web pages out there. There's a lot of misinformation. When people hear information about Y2K, they should always consider the source. Where is it coming from? Who are these people and why are they telling me this? Do they want me to buy something to make my business Y2K compliant? Do they want me to do something? Or are they a non-biased source, an unbiased source of information that wants to help me? We're reaching out to cities and towns. We're asking them on a local basis to see what they can do to make their town ready for anything. And one of the things that we also emphasize here is community preparedness.
First of all, start talking to your neighbors. Secondly, start talking to your local organizations. I'd say there are all sorts of programs out there right now.
There is a brochure that the American Red Cross puts out that actually is a very good preparedness brochure, and these are available from the Red Cross, and they detail some of the things that, you know, maybe you should keep around the house. In this case, it's Y2K oriented, but these items can be used anytime, you know, for any and all emergencies that may occur.
Y2K is a timequake, and what hits is social structures. If our society is resilient, we can handle it. If our society is fragile and it's ready to break into a variety of extremely hostile groups who are only waiting for an excuse to beat up on each other, we'll be in bad shape, even if it's not that bad a quake.
We're using Y2K as an opportunity for all cities and towns. Go back to your CEM plans. Look them over. Make sure you're familiar with them. Make sure your shelters are up to speed. Make sure the generators for those shelters are in working order. Make sure you have adequate fuel supplies for those generators. Make sure you have the volunteers or staff that structure in your community. Just make sure your community is ready. So we're using this as an opportunity to test readiness, to test emergency preparedness.
Those communities, those regions, those countries that face Y2K as an opportunity to strengthen their democratic, their popular base, their sense of participation, will be the winners. No matter how hard it hits, they'll be the winners in the coming century.
Even if there's not one Y2K problem, and there might not be, at least we have taken this as an opportunity to make ourselves, as a society as a whole, more prepared for any and all emergencies that may ever occur.
If we all defect, the system crashes. If we do this collectively, if we think about this as not just a community, but a community in a nation, and a nation in the world, if we think about this as something where we really have to think globally and act locally, This is, in fact, I think, a pretty extraordinary occasion for us to get to know our neighbors, for us to get to think about big issues like what's our relationship to the rest of the world, what's our relationship to technology, what's our relationship to each other, and to prepare in a way that essentially gives you a win-win solution. If it's serious, we've set up lines of communication to deal with it. If it's not serious, we've set up lines of communication to deal with the next disaster, whatever it happens to be, you know. So you win either way.
What are you going to be doing next New Year's Eve?
I hope to be in Israel. The year 2000 in Jerusalem is the equivalent, for the millennial scholar, is the equivalent of the Galapagos for Darwin. I mean, it's, you know, that's where the most extraordinary fauna and flora of apocalyptic expectation will manifest themselves.
I'll probably go out to First Night Boston.
I'm not going anywhere near Boston. I'm getting out of here.
I want to be in the thick of it when this happens so I can watch how people are acting. You know, and I'll have, you know, I'll know where my ride home is, just in case things get tough. You know, I'll have warm clothes on. I'll have, you know, I'll have a candy bar in my pocket. But I'm going to go out and I'm going to see what's happening because I want to see the world going on around me when it turns into 2000.
If nothing happens, it's fine. I'll be more than happy. But I'd rather be in a situation where I'm in control of the situation as opposed to when others are in control of me.
Well, my particular New Year's Eve, I'll probably be right here in the State Emergency Operations Center in Framingham. We are going to be staffing this facility to a certain point in case we do get any local requests for assistance.
We will be probably doing the same thing we've done for the last 5 or 6 years. We'll be home in bed early. I'll be asleep long before the ball drops in Times Square. And wondering, as I drift off, what's going to happen tomorrow. And only time will tell. I have no idea.
I hope everybody else enjoys a nice New Year, though.
Daddy, what's it gonna be like in the year 2000?
Well, sweetheart, for your sake, I hope it'll be all peaches and cream, but I'm afraid the end time is near, the cataclysmic apocalypse referred to in the scriptures of every holy book known to mankind. It will be an era fraught with boundless greed and corruption, where global monetary systems disintegrate, leaving brother to kill brother for a grain of overcooked rice. The nations of the civilized world will collapse under the oppressive weight of parasitic political conspiracies which remove all hope and optimism from their once faithful citizens. Around the globe, generations of polluters will be punished for their sins, unshielded by the ozone layer they have successfully depleted, left to bake in the searing naked rays of light. Wholesale assassinations serve to destabilize every remaining government, leaving the starving and wicked to fend for themselves.
Disease encircles the earth, plagues and viruses with no known cause or cure, laying waste to whatever draws breath, and humankind, having proven itself to be nothing more than a race of ruthless scavengers, fall victim to merciless attack at the hands of interplanetary alien tribes who seek to conquer our charred remains. This is extinction level event, the final world front, and there is only 1 year left.
Wow, that's cool. I can't hardly wait.